It's your boy, Ramoy George Phillips, the first.
And I'm Samantha and Zessie.
This is MASKulinity.
The show that investigates the performance of masculinity in the world today. You know we spell it with a hard K. So, Ramoy...
Yes, Samantha?
Do you want to account for your crime last week?
I don't know what crime this is we're talking about, but that's fine.
Oh, really? Okay, well, do you remember what you said in the close of last week's episode?
Absolutely not. Like we said, I'm old, but young, but old.
Well, let me play it for you.
Look, I know this is going to be like heresy, especially for this conversation, but I think I'm anti-Bad Bunny.
Oh my God. Are you trying?
So I think I need my attorney for this one. I need to get some legal representation. No?
Well, you may have one here.
Do I?
Yep, because we're joined by our illustrious pod brother, Danny Perez, host of Spanish language podcast that tackles all the complexities around gender, and it's titled Oreja Peluda. But Danny is also a rock star in his own right, and maybe a lawyer. But anyway, Danny, welcome.
Hi, it's so great to be here, and I can definitely be your attorney for that case. I identify myself with that statement, actually.
Nice. I'm the only Bad Bunny.
All right.
I'm the only one who's cool with Bad Bunny. Okay. No problem.
Okay, well, you're going to be my lawyer, and you're also a musician, but you're also a music teacher, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Been teaching music, been making music since I remember, and lately I've been learning a lot about masculinity, so...
Well, in that case, Samantha, let's get a drum roll, please.
They're getting better.
Oh, that was a loud one. Nice. Well, Danny, since you're an educator, pop quiz. What are we talking about on the show today?
We're talking about being a musician, being a music educator, and a guy that is learning about masculinity.
Well, we all are. We'll see how Danny scores and maybe how he defends me throughout this episode. Stay tuned.
Curious about next-gen men? We're a small part of a much larger movement to undefine masculinity for a brighter future. Our mission is clear: empower the next generation to use their curiosity, empathy, and courage to build a more equitable world. Join the Next Gen Men community as we learn and unlearn together. We're here to support boys and men to break free from limiting stereotypes. We're not just an organization, we're a catalyst for reimagining masculinity and fostering inclusivity. We're here to help open up possibilities for what men and boys can be. Explore the world of Next Gen Men at nextgenmen.ca and join the community to make a difference. Next Gen Men, shaping tomorrow's leaders one step at a time. Join us and help undefine masculinity and empower the next generation of men to lead with empathy and courage.
Welcome back. So we're here today with Oreja Peluda host and producer Danny Perez, who's also part of the podcast network at Next Gen Men. Danny, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor, really.
Oh, well, it's good to have you here. But actually, Danny, why do you think you're here today?
I would like you to tell me that. What am I doing here? Why am I living?
Can you correct Danny's existential crisis for us?
Well, yeah, we spent a few episodes talking about hip hop, but I thought we'd close out our series. And yes, this is the last episode of our music series, to my chagrin, by zooming out a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So, Danny, you're here to zoom out with us. It's going to be a bittersweet ending, I presume, for you, Samantha.
Bittersweet for sure, but I am excited about the stories I'm going to walk you through in today's finale. There's so much around music and gender, and music is kind of like, TV in the sense that a lot of folks just have it on in the background and it just enters their subconscious and lives there. So actually, Danny, wondering what it is like one song when you were a teenager that maybe stands out to you? One that you can remember kind of lodged in your brain for a while.
Since I was a teenager, it's probably a song by Weezer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Teenage Dirtbag.
Nice.
Yeah, that's probably one of my a song from my teenage days, and every now and again it comes up again on my Spotify algorithm, and it's kind of stuck in my head for a long. Wheatus, actually, it's not Wizard, it's Wheatus. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much for that nugget of knowledge. I'm not well versed on my Weezer.
Wow, Wheatus.
Or Wheatus, or
Wheatus. I'm sorry.
Such a music connoisseur, like Samantha. You're just letting me down. I knew the music. I'm just saying.
I know. I mean, I literally only knew like Incubus. That was like the only like teenage band that I was in, the only rock band that I was into as a teenager.
On my teens, I was very much into rock. I listened to Korn a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know Korn.
Wow. And Limp Bizkit and so on.
Oh, jeez.
We all, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Is that the one with Fred Durst?
Yeah.
That's the one with
That's
Fred
the
Durst,
one.
right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
They're touring. They're touring South America this year.
Oh.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Are you gonna go?
No.
Okay. I was like, to reclaim your teenage years.
No.
Well, music has the power to either reinforce or challenge our understandings of gender, right? And one way that it does that is through music performance. So I have a question for you both, actually. Do you know Ziggy Stardust?
I mean, you're just, because I just answered the last one in my big music brain. Of course, I know the answer.
Yes.
But Danny, Samantha, why don't you tell me? Why don't you tell me?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I have 2 dogs here at home, and one of my dogs is called Ziggy Stardust.
Wow. So, Danny, you totally know about this.
Yeah. So, maybe you should tell us who Ziggy Stardust is.
Well, he's one of the characters from David Bowie's many impersonations.
I love it. So Ziggy Stardust, right, is this like persona of an androgynous alien coming to Earth with a message of hope, but then eventually, unfortunately, dying of their own excess and fame. And it's grim, but it's fitting when we think about what commercialization can do to art and expression. So where would you say that David Bowie's Ziggy Dust era, like what genre is that?
Ooh.
I totally know this one, but you know what? I'm going to let Danny answer this. Huh?
Right. So the genre, I wouldn't know for sure, because to me, it's all kind of a progressive rock kind of vibe. So that's what I would catalog it, but maybe there's a better term for it.
It's actually called glam rock, also known as glitter rock. Do you guys know about this genre?
Yep.
Kind of a little bit. Yeah, tell us more.
Nice. So glam rock emerged in the early 1970s, actually from England, as a flamboyant and theatrical subgenre of rock, right? It was over the top. It celebrated androgyny and excess.
Yeah, this sounds like Kiss or maybe like Aerosmith or bands like that, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So it was like kind of that extravagant fashion, glittery makeup.
I take glam rock has a lot more to do with the performance of it more than the actual musicality of it. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, so what's really interesting about glam rock in England, actually glitter rock here in the US is kind of what we called it. You can probably infer that it had these profound implications for the construction of masculinity, the expression of masculinity, right? So I'm wondering, Danny, why do you think that is?
Well, given that, as I said, I think the genre as such, glam rock, has had a lot more to do with the performance. It kind of tried to break boundaries of what, in this case, a man should look like or should act like while on stage. So you see all these glam rock bands or performances, and as you said, they celebrated androgyny. So it's all about showing more the feminine side, maybe. All the makeup, the exaggeration of the makeup. So I think it kind of tried to break the stereotype of rock at that moment, and by showing the more feminine side of the masculine artists.
Yeah, and I feel like it becomes really interesting pulling back the layers on this, right? Because while glam rock challenged traditional notions of masculinity by blurring the lines between genders, it was really only for show, right?
Yeah, but like, isn't that kind of what Danny said? And like, these are performing artists, like they are putting on a show. So like, what are we talking about by that?
Well, I mean, well, yes, of course. But what I mean is that it's really about like a show that doesn't actually allow people to affirm who they really are. Right. So
I'm not totally following Danny. Like, do you know what Samantha's saying here?
Based on the lyrics, you mean?
I think it's more like about the performance.
That's one way.
Okay. I heard that Samantha was going to say something about the lyrics, but yeah.
Okay, well, let me break it down for you. So I'm pointing to the fact that while exploring gender fluidity and sexuality was cool on stage, that wasn't really the case in real life, right? Like, homosexuality between consenting adults had just been partially decriminalized, right? And being gay was still mostly considered unacceptable on a social level. There's really no difference from mainstream music. Right. So to be clear, there were a lot of other figures in the glam rock movement who embraced androgyny, both in their music and in their personas. And actually, Ramoy and probably Danny, of course, you may have some ideas of who some of these folks were.
Honestly, like, no. I mean, I would need a reminder. I'm old. Help me, Danny, maybe. You know some of these.
Well, I would like to think that David Bowie was one of those.
Definitely.
Yeah. Probably Robert from The Cure also rings a bell there, even though The Cure is not glam rock. It's more like, another type of genre. But his persona, to me, maybe could be a bit like that.
Definitely David Bowie, right? If we're focusing on the 70s, you've got an Alice Cooper, you've got the New York Dolls, you've got Mark Bolan of T-Rex, you've got Brian Eno. And then there's also Elton John and Queen, right? And Brian May, actually, Queen's lead guitarist, talked about this double standards of glam rock between straight and gay performers.
But like, what does that mean? How so?
Well, so it's important to remember that this is in retrospect, right? So he was actually once quoted as saying, quote, "So we dress up as girls, as women, and we have a fantastic laugh doing it. It was hilarious to do it. And all around the world, people laughed and they got the joke and they sort of understood it. And I remember being on the promo tour in the Midwest of America and people's faces turning ashen. And they would say, no, we can't play this. We can't possibly play this. It looks homosexual. And I went, so? End quote. Now, Danny, putting your musician and educator's hat on, what does this quote say to you?
From that quote, I take that it wasn't like a real kind of drive as to the reason why they were doing it in the first place. I don't know. You would probably flip this on the side for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll give you a little context. So, glam rock performers were mostly men. And we look back on this from the present time, and we just like kind of remember the love and the success. But at the time, they did ruffle some feathers, right? As most over-the-top performers tend to do. The press was definitely outraged, but the people still loved it because rock stars are allowed their eccentricities, and it was still part of the act, right? So we can't really think of glam rock success as acceptance of different sexualities and genders, because it wasn't.
But like, say more.
Well, none of the glam rock performers at the time were out as gay. And that's tough for us to remember sometimes because as of 2024, we have known for some time that Freddie Mercury was gay, but that fact about him was not confirmed publicly until after his death. He kept it hidden throughout his life. Now, one thing about that Brian May quote, Brian certainly knew that Freddie Mercury was gay, right? Because they're in the same band together. Queen was named as kind of like a fuck you to like, actually I am gay and rock stars can be gay. And so we're going to name our band Queen, right? But the public didn't know that. So even Bowie plainly stated that he was gay during an interview with Michael Watts in 1972. And folks still wrote it off as part of his performance. So after the interview, Watts recalled that Bowie had said that he was gay, quote unquote, cheekily, as if it were for like publicity or something. He also says in the article that Bowie was happily married to a woman, that they had a kid, and Bowie was like supposed that he was what people refer to as bisexual. And then he says, but Bowie, people call Bowie a lot of things. And it just kind of feels dismissive of his claim. Like it just wasn't taken seriously. Now, I'm wondering how you think that would make you feel if you were in David Bowie's shoes.
Yeah, I'd feel real sad. I mean, it's a different time and it's a different era, but it's just, you kind of said something like the effect of like affirming your person or who you are. Like, you can even come out and say it and still not be affirmed or be treated as a joke. You could be one of the most famous or like powerful, quote unquote, artists of your time, and it's still like you can't be who you are or taken seriously as who you are. It's surreal.
Yeah, I think looking back as in retrospective and what these artists did back then, and as Rimoy just said, even by them trying to be honest to themselves and like saying these things, in interviews and about who they are, or even then the media, and I think that's something that maybe even happens to this day, but the media will just shape how these artists are seen by the audiences, and the media will at the end of the day decide what is worth telling about them and what is not.
I think it's exactly that. And, while these folks may have been controversial like other glam rock stars at the time, simply because of their presentation, with the additional spice, of course, for Freddie Mercury, because he was part Pakistani, right? Everyone still had a thriving career. But if people had actually had different sexualities and genders off stage, then that might actually throw off the status quo. And we really can't have that, right? Because accepting gender fluidity beyond the stage might actually challenge patriarchy in a real way. And I feel like that's kind of what Brian May's quote was driving at, right? That like, so what if we're gay? You like the way we look or whatever, right? Like, what's the problem?
Yeah, I see that. It's like we're allowed to show this gender fluidity on stage as long as in the name of the art, and then people will be like, oh yeah, this is cool. This is a cool performance. But then if that translates or if that shows in real life as the person that you are, then that line is not so friendly anymore.
I'm just like wondering, is this like, we've talked about the Midwest and this kind of being positioned in the US, like, are we just talking about in the US, or is this like happening elsewhere?
No, it is not just happening in the US, actually. There's actually a band that I'm thinking of from the Southern Hemisphere that changed things. Any guesses on who this might be?
I have no idea, but I'm assuming we're talking the same time, 70s, 80s, 60s, something in there, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't effing. I know, shit. Soda Stereo, but they're like mad 80s. Late, and I don't think they're like different genre. Everything, but I'm trying to pretend like I know something. But, so I'm just gonna flip it to Danny.
I don't know. I'm thinking of a band from Spain, but that's you said Southern Hemisphere, so it's definitely not them.
Wait, who are you thinking of? Just out of curiosity.
I'm thinking of Alaska y los Pegamoides. That's called. It's a glam rock from the 70s as well.
Ooh. Okay, I'm definitely going to be looking that up. But I'm actually talking about Secos y Molhados from Brazil.
Ooh.
Yes. Have either of you heard of this band?
No.
Just now through that sexy thing you just did. Dang.
So French and Portuguese, and very cool.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I used to, had a little stint in Brazil for a second, but
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, what does that name mean?
So it's actually interesting. This name actually means wet and
dry and
goods.
wet. Yeah.
Yeah, dry and wet goods.
Ooh, you're doing something there. Ooh, I like it.
LOL.
But like, just real quick, are we talking, these are like glam bands, like they look the same, like makeup, glitter, androgyny, things like that?
Yes. So Secos y Molhados have Ney Matogrosso, who is their superstar, high-pitched lead singer. They have him to thank for like the kabuki-inspired signature look, right? Which actually, he still maintains to this day that the band Kiss actually stole from them.
Sure, figures.
Right, exactly. So now Matogrosso was actually out as a gay man in Brazil back in the day in the 70s. Like, can you imagine?
Well, I'm assuming it's like super repressive then and there as well.
Yes, and even more so, actually, because, you know, at this time, there were actually like civil rights movements in progress around the States, right? But in Brazil, it was a completely different story. But he still defied patriarchy in his art, within his band, and as a solo artist. Now, I'm wondering, do either of you have any knowledge of what was happening in Brazil at this time?
I wouldn't know really that much about Brazil, but around South America around that time, it was almost every country in South America was under a dictatorship. So maybe in Brazil there was something similar happening.
Yeah, I would say you're right. Brazil definitely caught the dictatorship bug. That's a horrible way to say that. But anyway, so the band formed in 1971 and released their first album in 1973. And at the time, correct, Danny, the country of Brazil was experiencing an intensely repressive military regime, which, get this, the U.S. helped install in 1964.
God, the U.S. loves their coups. No, yeah, it makes sense.
That's real. They're actually, yeah, it was the coup that they helped with. So this regime lasted in Brazil until March 1985. And while it helped to bring economic growth to Brazil, socially, it had your typical characteristics that you can find in most dictatorships, right? So censorship, no real freedom of speech, nationalism, and of course, the violent human rights violations to keep everyone in line.
So bug sounds like an apt description of the dictatorship. But amidst the dictatorship bug in Brazil, how was the band that I could pronounce? How were they received amidst all that?
So that's a really good question, right? Because the answer is twofold. So as the government was cracking down, international countercultural ideas were still making it to Brazil's urban middle class, and especially to the youth.
I'm assuming this band is young. You said they come out in 71, released in 73. They're young, like they're kind of kids too.
Yeah, they're kind of like early 20s, doing their thing. And
shout out to the young folks. We out here, we the kids, we making music, we rebelling. We got dissent.
Oh, shout out to the kids. Ramon, you and I are no longer kids. I wish we were, though.
Chill.
Yeah.
Chill out.
But thanks for the youthful spirit. I wish we were. So Secos y Molhados.
40 is the new 15. What up?
Let's just run with that. I'll take it. I'll take it. Yeah, so Secos y Molhados and other artists like Caetano Veloso, who's actually one of my favorites, the musical theater troupe Gizzy Croquetes from Rio. All these artists who were challenging gender and sexual rigidity were a breath of fresh air for people. In particular, because S&M, which is how they're affectionately called in Brazil, Secos y Molhados, learned to code their stories about sexuality in their songs so that they could fly above the intense censorship bill that had just passed, which is awesome.
Okay, this sounds interesting and dope, but do we have examples of this? What are we talking about?
Yeah, so in the song Uvira, the band played with the folkloric image of a man who becomes a werewolf at night. And that was actually a metaphor for married men with secret gay lives. So while singing the tagline, turn man, turn into a werewolf, Matogrosso would actually shake his little backside while snarking at the audience. And I'm just so impressed with the level of secret. Exactly.
Shake that ass, dog.
I just love it. Secret messages, fuck the dictatorship.
Secret message. It's real Steppenwolf vibes here, but not the band you may be thinking of, Danny. But I'm talking the book. I'm talking Herman Hesse. Shout out to my books out there.
Of course, that's not a literati life. Literati life. So yes, on one hand, they're really accepted. On the other hand, they kind of had to break through. When the band was performing in São Paulo one night, the crowd was chanting viado, which translates to the homophobic F word in Portuguese. So there's a lot going on. Okay.
That's rough. That's not great.
Yeah, it's not fun. But still, the band did manage to win everyone over when Ney Matogrosso told the crowd to get fucked in the ass.
Wow.
So apparently that raucous derogatory chants then turned into raucous cheering and applause. So
wow, this guy just knows how to turn a crowd amongst the many things. I ain't mad at it. He and the band sound like an unafraid group and individuals and just kind of real pioneers. I'm not mad at it at all.
Yeah, he's a badass. So Ney Matogrosso, who still tours to this day, albeit with a bit of a more like toned down look, he's still one of Brazil's most beloved artists. And I love that he embraced this truth to get there, right? It kind of feels like that conversation we had about making space for a range of experiences and identities within music.
Oh, these are some good stories, guys. How do we feel? Yeah? I learned a lot. I traveled around the world. I learned how to turn a crowd.
Yeah, this is awesome. Awesome stuff.
I think we're at that point in this conversation where you two, go do the interview thing and I go hang out by myself.
Well, actually, Ramoy, I have a new idea that I want to run by you.
Do you? What are we talking about?
No, I think you'll like it.
Okay, well, I guess after the break, me and Danny and Samantha go over a new idea. Maybe we all go a little further into this whole world of music and masculinity, maybe? Is that what we're doing?
Something like that. Trust me.
All right. Stay tuned.
Calling all bookworms and changemakers, get ready to dive into Book Club. That's BOOK, beyond our own knowledge for those that don't know. Explore a world of captivating reads that explore diversity, foster empathy, and spark personal and professional growth. Join a vibrant community of readers with over 650 male leaders to date. Engage in thought-provoking discussions and expand your horizons. It's not just a book club, it's a journey towards a more inclusive future. Visit bookclubformen.com today and start your reading adventure with purpose. Book Club, where pages turn to progress and readership to leadership. Join the club and let's read for change.
Welcome back. So I want to offer a little format change here.
Okay. Should I be worried?
Maybe. No. Yes. Definitely. No. Sure.
Well, Danny, I think you're going to be the guinea pig on this. I think you're ready for that, right? How do we say guinea pig in Spanish?
Conejillo de Indias.
Oh, that sounds dope. Conejillo de Indias. That sounds,
I'm not mad at it.
Yeah. It sounds like a beautiful cloth or something. So it's funny you should have all these questions, Ramoy, because that's where I think, you are, questions and books and learning. But that's why I think I want to try to shake things up, right? Like what I'm thinking is, we have the podcast.
Yes, which we are on that currently. Yes, so we do.
Well, we also have the IG live show Beneath the Mask that you're never on. So
touche. Okay, fair. Touche. But fine.
Well, now, Danny, an audience who doesn't know, Beneath the Mask is our bi-monthly show where we invite previous guests to join us on Instagram Live for a post-mortem, if you will. We talk through their experience on the pod, get some audience questions, and we usually have a friend join us from a presenting sponsor, Next Gen Men.
We? I mean, I think that's you and not me. I don't know if that's a we, but that's fine.
Well, I'm glad you reiterated your stubbornness because that too is part of the format change. So since you don't want to play on our IG, you don't get to play in the second half from Moy. It's just me and Danny. But you have to stick around.
Yeah, but why? Why do I have to be here?
Well, to be in line with Beneath the Mask, there we inevitably ask 5 questions. So what I think we do is we do that here too.
Okay, so we're doing this
it's like a 20 questions game, but only with 5.
Yes,
but only 5 questions. Okay.
So I'll inevitably have more than 5 because I always have just so many questions.
It's true.
But I can only ask 5, and I don't think it's just me though. So let's just say at the end, our guest, in this case you, Danny, you get to ask. Get ready for it. Drum roll. Ramoy, a question.
Aha.
That drum well. And what? I have to answer a question? I have to stick around for one question?
Yeah. Yep, you do. Yep. At the end of every Beneath the Mask that you skip out on, our guests get to ask me a question. Now, I don't want you to have to miss out on being in the hot seat yourself. You know what I mean?
I don't know, man. This sounds like entrapment. Like I need a lawyer for this. I need representation. Can I like go at least get my lawyer? I don't have one of those, but you know.
Anyway, so Danny, you can ask Ramoy any question, like what's his favorite cereal, how much Desperate Housewives he watches in a week, how lucky he feels knowing me. Probably very lucky. How does that sound?
To me, it sounds great.
Nice. Also, Ramoy, I'm asking Danny his 5 questions. You can chime in here and there, making sure we're sticking to it.
Oh, fantastic. My dream come true.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like another game. Do we got a name for this new game?
I'm actually like really awesome at games, but I don't actually have a name for this yet. And maybe that's something that our audience can help us with. You know, folks, if you have any ideas for a title for this portion of the show, send us a DM or email us at masculinitypodcast@gmail.com. Please spell masculinity with a K so some random podcast doesn't get it.
You know, I'm not mad at it. I pretend like I'm mad at it, but like, let's just try it out, see how it goes.
Okay, let's do it. So to get us started, Danny, before all these important conversations about masculinity, you're a musician and you teach music, right?
I am and I do, yes.
What? That's question 1. I just want to put that out there. We only got 4 more left. That's question 1.
Okay, thanks, guys. Danny, please continue.
That's okay. You can have that as a bonus question.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm a musician. I am from Ecuador in sunny, not sunny Latin America. It's been really cold these days, so that's why I cannot say it's been sunny. But yeah, I'm from Quito. I've been living here for the past decade. I used to live abroad, where I studied music and music production. But since I got back to Ecuador, I started teaching music production at a university, and I have a band. I also host a podcast, which is how we all met through the Next Gen Men podcast network. And the podcast is called Oreja Peluda, in which we talk about masculinities in Latin America.
So how have your learnings about masculinity impacted how you think about music?
So for me, it's been quite a journey to learn and think about my own masculinity and the ways that I have been taught and raised within this, within society, particularly in Latin America, because I think Latin America has a great problem, if I could use that word, of, gender violence and gender inequality. So masculinity here in Latin America has brought along so many issues for people, in the LGBTQ community, for women, for little girls and boys, for men themselves. So this time that I've been learning and thinking about masculinity has also made me think a lot about the purpose and the objectives of art. I think that it's very important to me now that music gets to be a political channel to talk about gender violence and masculinity and inequality and racism. And I think it has informed a part of me, the musician part of me, the artist in me, to speak up a lot more for justice and for equality. I think it's not only about thinking about my role as a male person in my society or my social circle, but also my role as an artist and as a musician to try and be more vocal about these things in music.
I'm actually wondering, has this come up with other musicians actually?
It has, and maybe not as much as I would like to, but at least there are a lot more artists within my circle and my community that are more aware of the situations or of these subjects, and they are willing, at least they are more willing to talk about this a little bit more, even though I still see that the majority of people that I know that are part of the music community here in Ecuador, whenever there is something going on of something of a political issue or something, they decide to stay quiet, and that's still a majority. But yeah, I have seen a shift of openness in many other artists, and we might not be majority yet, but we're a bit more every day. So that's a bit hopeful, I guess.
So, musician, thinker, in community with other artists, having these conversations, like, do you feel like that has impacted your performance as a musician?
Oh yeah, definitely. Music is it's an art that goes along with performance. I mean, performance is it's a very important part of music. So trying to also reinforce whatever the lyrics may have, or whatever concept the music that we're writing or performing are, being on a stage or using social media to also talk about the things that the lyrics might talk about, or the ideas that came when we were trying to write this song or whatever. Everything is part of the art itself. So yeah, it has influenced the performance. It has brought about this idea of kind of the glam rock that we were talking about. I think that there is a more desire to do more on stage, to show the ideas in a more visual manner, not only through the music, also through the performance, through the through the costumes that you may wear, through the makeup that you may wear, the visuals that you may that you may create for a show or so. The music videos, the way that you create your persona, because at the end of the day, as a musician, people will look at you, and some of them will recognize you, and some of them will follow your work. So you become kind of a public person. Not saying that you might be famous, but does that imply some other things? But even within a small circle, you have people that follow your work and constantly contact you and look up to you. So in a way, you are involved in a public performance every time, and through your social medias and through your work. So it definitely affects performance. It has to. And I'm for me at least, the way that I'm constantly thinking about whatever if I'm creating something new, or if I'm about to deliver a product, or create a song, or collaborate with some other artists, I try to think, what does that mean in regards to my political views right now, and in regards to specifically to my masculinity and the way I am trying to perceive this in my life right now. So is this a person that I want to collaborate with, make art with? Is this a space that I will be comfortable being in? It has been a very important thing to me to think about these things right now, and to to explore what in my art I can do to make for me, and that it goes so that it goes in line with what I think, instead of trying to make things that might sell a lot, or just for the sake of making things, or for the sake of selling more. People usually might compromise their values or their whatever, but to me right now, I'm in a position in my life, or in a place in my life right now, where I'm just trying to make things that will make me feel good about what I'm doing, and that will make me feel that I am contributing in some way to what I believe in.
Beautiful, beautiful. So,
I just want to clarify. That's 4 questions now. If we want to go with Danny's bonus question, then it's 3. It's our first one. So yeah, we could say it's 3, but I'm just.
I haven't passed my.
You got 2 questions.
I haven't passed my ceiling yet. Yeah,
just letting you know.
Okay, we said we got a bonus question, so I am going to.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with it. You already said it. Okay, so now does this conversation now come into your teaching of music? like, how does that work, right? You're like talking about masculinity, thinking about masculinity with Oreja Peluda. These conversations are coming up now in community with musicians. Is there a way to translate that conversation of truth, of, you know, questioning masculinity, of making space for different identities and, you know, sexualities on and off the stage, right? Like, how does that then, like, is there a way to then now include, like, how do you teach that? Can you teach that? You know?
That's like 20 questions, but that's fine. That's qualified.
That's like $1 million question, right?
Yeah.
I guess there has to be a way. And this teaching music, teaching art in general, I think it should have a lot more to do with that, with, you know, with why are we doing what we're doing, with creating spaces and creating content that will create visibility for minorities, that will fight against injustice. And I think in some of the music education circumstances, you might be able to kind of include those things within the conversation or the class that you may be having. In my case, I teach a class which is music production in a studio. So whenever I teach, like my teaching environment is in the music studio, and my students sort of learning how to connect things up and, you know, mic the instruments in better ways and techniques and so on, and creating their own music and recording their own music. But that's when I've also seen many times the opportunity to talk about these things, because if they're creating their own music, I like to talk to them about why are they creating the song that they're proposing to create. Why are they writing about this subject? And it's I think that's where, you know, a clear opportunity comes to me in my experience, because in that way, at least we can get to think about why, the reasons why, and what am I trying to say with this song, with these sounds, with this genre, with this subject. You know, if I want to talk about love, or the end of a relationship, or if I want to talk about partying and drugs and so on, well, what do I want to say about this and why? And I think when you're teaching music, it becomes an opportunity to actually have those conversations and think beyond the music itself, and start having conversations about the reasons and the contexts and the effects that they may have, you know, in certain places. If you listen to this, if you listen to that, if you create this, what are you saying? What are you reinforcing? What are you challenging? So yeah, maybe it's not kind of a sociology class in which you openly can talk about these sort of things, but being art and all, I think it creates a great opportunity to have those sort of conversations through the creation of things.
Mm-hmm. Kind of switching over into Oreja Peluda, you know, I know that you've had a bunch of conversation around masculinity with different experts and different folks around the Americas, right? And I remember that you found a lot of overlap, right, around kind of like the understandings of masculinity, the way that it shows up and manifests. So what is the access point for talking about masculinities beyond, well, I guess you weren't actually talking about it in the classroom because of music production, but like, what would that be like? Like, what is the access point for having that conversation?
There might be many access points. And I think it will depend on the person or the people that you're talking to. For me, in going back to the music teaching kind of example, that access point has a lot to do with pop culture. I think at least within my, you know, the place where I work, which is music education, I think pop culture is a great access point to start those conversations. Within the podcast, within Oreja Peluda, and the many different kind of profiles that we've talked to, a major access point is violence, because at least everybody can agree that, we live in a very violent society and environment over here, and that at least is a clear access point to start thinking about, the reasons why that violence is what it is. It has a lot to do with gender and the intersectionality that it has with race and class and religion. So I think that's a very major access point that I've identified in those conversations.
Copy that.
Wow, we did it. Samantha got her 6 questions off, maybe an additional 3 or 4 more in there, cloaked in one. I don't know how she did that, but she did it. We did it.
Well, actually, now it's your turn to take your shot. Anything you want to ask? Vermoy has to answer.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Waterboard me, bro. Question waterboard me, bro.
And I only have one.
Ooh, no.
Wow. You're nice. Okay.
See, I know something.
I just want to ask, why did you... Well, maybe this is a question for both of you, but since Vermoy is going to answer it, what led you to create MASKulinity?
Yeah, I'll give you the most abridged version I could tell, but I grew up in a single parent home where that single parent, my mother, suffered the abuse at the hands, so the violence at the hands of a shitty husband, my father. And so a lot of my child life, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be better than that. I'm not going to be an asshole. I'm not going to be an abuser or violent or whatever. Turned my 20s, and in New York with all these beautiful humans around me and my very delicate male ego, I wasn't luckily physically abusive or violent or anything, but I definitely got emotionally abusive at times and turned into a jerk to partners or even friends. And then I was like, shit. After that, I was like, oh, I just was I'm the biggest hypocrite ever. And kind of around that time, Samantha, this was, a little bit after that, but just after thinking about that, Samantha had asked post Me Too, I think we should explore a podcast about, thinking and being curious about this more and what would that look like. And just knowing that I had both been a hypocrite and also benefited from a lot of privilege to maintain that hypocrisy. I was like, yeah, bet, let's do it. I want to get honest and real and figure this shit out. So I think that's it.
And I'm grateful for it. Despite all the shit I gave you about being in the literati.
Thanks, Doc.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you, Danny, for coming through and giving us an actual musician's outlook on masculinity. You're the first and hopefully not the last. But yeah, your perspective is hugely appreciated.
No, thank you. Thank you for asking me about these things. It's important to just sit down and have this kind of conversations, because sometimes things happen so fast, and myself, I don't even stop to think about these things. So it's good to just stop and talk about this through. Yeah.
Danny, is there anything you want to plug or anything we want to tell people to listen to Oreja Peluda, obviously, but you're going to have some other links to share, but you got any music coming out in the near future? Anything?
Well, yeah, my band just released a new song, and I'll send you the link to my band's Spotify so you could maybe share that.
Yeah, but why don't you tell us the name of the song, and just we can all get Latin, ooh.
Sure. So my band's name is called Cementerio de Elefantes.
Ooh, wow.
Ooh.
And we do, what we play is kind of a indie pop psych rock thing.
Oh, that is totally up my alley. Okay.
We just released this new song called Tanto, and before that we released a new animated video that we had been working on for forever. So yeah, I'll send you some stuff so you could listen to that.
So, how do you think that went?
Well, as RGP1 would say,
Oh, that's me.
I'm mad at it.
Oh, they do say imitation is the best form of flattery.
Who says that, Vermoy?
Well, it's who that we need to help us come up with the name for this second half of our show.
Yeah.
So if you, the who, have some ideas of what we could call our new 5-question interview format, send us an email at maskulinitypodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, let's let this sit for a couple weeks. Next week, we'll go back to the original format of an interview. That's also because that's one that's already recorded. After that, we'll come back to this new format, hopefully with a new name.
Yeah, you can also DM your ideas over at MaskulinityPod on any and all of the socials. We'll also be sharing links and additional resources there as well.
And don't forget us in your podcast apps. That's where you can give us 5 stars and all of the love. Seriously, though, those reviews really do help us to get into more people's ears and to grow this community.
5 stars, 5 stars.
And next week, we have another pod bro joining us. That's Jeremy Hurt from the podcast Let's Talk Bruh, where we talk about his podcast, sure. But we also connected to, get ready for it, matriarchy.
Wow, didn't see that one coming.
Really? Did you not, since you were there when we recorded it?
Oh, okay, well, Samantha's flattery, I guess, does have a shelf life, I can see. Until that time, though, I'm your boy, Ramoy George Phillip, the first.
And I'm Samantha Zessie. Thank you so much for listening.
Peace.
Ciao.
We should have that Bad Bunny conversation at some point.